Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 44th edition of the Forward Pass Podcast. We've got myself, we've got Arch, we've got Sam Perry in the building. Luke Duskus still participating in camp, preparing for a grueling season for the Kennesaw State Owls, who have an opponent that we're going to discuss in this segment. Spoiler alert, it's going to be the team in Knoxville, Tennessee. But listen, we're going SEC preview. And there's always a big discussion about what's a better conference? Is it the SEC? Is it the Big Ten? And early in the decade, you had the Urban Meyer, the Nick Saban, the Kirby Smart run, followed by an onslaught of Big 12, Big 10 national championships. So we actually have a little op-ed for you here from our pal Sam Perry. Sam, explain this worldwide debate.
Yeah, and I think this argument, along with like many other large scale arguments, just in anything, whether it's sports, life, politics, etc., the answer lies between both parties, right? Like the main problem with this issue, this argument, is the fact that it's such a polarizing argument. Like you're hearing the Big Ten fans say the Big Ten is much better than the SEC based on the fact that they have won the last three national championships, which is very fair to say. You have the SEC fans and SEC truthers saying the SEC is a much better conference because of the day-to-day grueling schedule of having to travel and play teams like Auburn and South Carolina and Florida on a weekly basis. And, if you can accept the fact that both of these things can be true, that the answer lies between that, based on the last 3 years, yes, the top 1% of the Big Ten is better than the SEC. You cannot debate that because you have Michigan, Ohio State, and Indiana, three separate national champions in the past 3 years in the 12 team, two of them being in the 12 team, one of them being in the four-team college football playoff. And in the SEC, you can easily make the argument that the median, the middle ground of teams, is higher than the middle ground of teams in the Big Ten. And just to kind of get right into the SEC, you're looking at, I came up with 7 teams whose fan base expectations, and like a reasonable season outcome is to make the college football playoff. And these are just the top 7 teams, and it's Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, Texas, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. Those teams all are going into this season with the expectation of we are going to be in the field of 12 in the college football playoff, competing for a national championship. If all 7 of these teams make it, they expect to make it far in the bracket. They're not in for, a Boise State or JMU type one-off game. So what's interesting is about 4 to 5 of these fan bases are going to be really upset and really disappointed with the outcome of their seasons because someone has to be quote unquote bad. And that's what makes the SEC just the most exciting conference in the land. Like outside of just those 7, you have 2 teams in Auburn and Florida with new coaches and new voices trying to regain national power. You have rising programs like Missouri and Vanderbilt who are trying to show that the last few years are legit and that they deserve to be SEC mainstays. And then you have schools like Kentucky and Arkansas also have new head coaches trying to prove like we are a football school on top of being a basketball school. And then there's a team in a small town of South Carolina that has a very talent-laden roster and are looking to sharpen the Sir Big Spurs and rise from last year to regain that national prowess, and that is the South Carolina Gamecocks. But very excited to get into this, talk a little SEC ball, probably the deepest we're going to dive into a conference preview because there's so much to talk about.
Sam, well said. Arch and Sam, I'm going to throw you guys out a take. You guys know how I love my parallels. So I'm going to give you a parallel, and you let me know how this sounds. Kirby Smart is the football version of Dan Hurley. And Georgia, their reciprocal in college basketball is UConn. They both have back-to-back national championships within the 2020s. And more than any of the statistics or the wins and the titles, the way the programs feel is the same. Like Dan Hurley talks about the reason UConn is so good is because every game they play, there's like a requisite compete level that you have to get to that's like baseline higher than pretty much any team's even willing to go to. And that's the same way with Georgia. Like there's a level of compete and physicality that even when Georgia was struggling, they didn't have top tier edge rushers last year to get after the quarterback. They were still such a problem on defense because they just fly around, they tackle, they find ways. They're like grit and a lot of like intangible qualities that it's really hard to quantify via statistics is off the charts. It's the same way when you watch UConn basketball and you're like, dude, these guys are flying around the court. It feels like they're playing defense with six guys. It feels like the Dogs play defense with 13 guys. Um, I think like the same juice that Georgia runs on is like parallel to the juice that Dan Hurley runs on. Now, again, personality wise, they're not the same type of coach, but I think the way those programs have evolved mirror each other.
I don't hate that take. I don't know. It could be debated that UConn has had more success since those back-to-back titles, postseason wise. Because obviously the last 2 years Georgia has failed to win a playoff game, and you kind of see UConn rising to the occasion. Like last year when they knocked off Duke in the improbable, you kind of saw Georgia being the Duke in that situation where they were the team favored. But I do like the I think both programs is a pretty good comp. And coach wise, I don't know. I mean, personally, I would like to see Georgia have more postseason success. So, and
True, but
You do see UConn get that arguably more since the back to back. I'm forgetting.
UConn has lost back-to-back Big East championships, I believe. St. John's
Mhm,
has, or maybe
mhm.
did UConn win last year or did St. John's win back-to-back?
I think St. John's won last year as well.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I guess they're just inverse. Like Kirby's had a lot of success in SEC championship games that haven't necessarily, bore itself out into playoff success. But yeah, we're nitpicking the exact parallel. But I just think the feel around the programs of like, fuck, like we're playing Georgia today. Like
Mm,
we're gonna have to throw our fastball as hard as we can.
100%.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like the just comparing elite coaches at any level,
Yeah.
right? Like no matter what, the floor is going to be raised to a certain degree just because of, the program that this coach runs and the standard that he sets.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk some Georgia here. Um, Basically, like when you're looking at, I try to figure out like what are like tangible ways to think about the best teams in the sport. And I think like the top three places I look at in college football are one, do you have a top six coach in the conference? Two, do you have a top six quarterback in the conference? And then three, do you have game breaking players, i.e., NFL first, second, or third round picks on your roster? And if all three of those things are aligned, you've got a really good shot at doing some damage. Now, Georgia, I think, fits into that category. I think Kirby Smart's the best coach in the conference. Me and Arch had, and we did our QB rankings. Gunner finished 5 or 6, depending on, your cup of tea in the SEC quarterback rankings. So they have a top six quarterback at the tail end of it. And then do they have NFL first round talent this year? You bet you. Go look at their secondary, KJ Bolden, Ellis Robinson. They've got some dudes. I mean, they've got dudes all over the roster. So I think the two teams that pop off the page in the SEC that like have all of those categories in spades are Texas and Georgia. There's also going to be another. But there's a couple other teams that are around there, but those are the teams that pop off the stage. Arch, when you look at Georgia's schedule, when you look at Georgia as a whole, what do you look at as some of the strengths that you think are going to shine through this year? And then also, what do you think are the pitfalls or some of the landmines placed in their way?
I mean, to be honest, it is a very fortuitous schedule. Definitely different than what Georgia's got in the last 2 years in terms of who they play and where they play them specifically. Obviously, you have your game at Alabama October 10th. Uh, you host Oklahoma on September 26th. Obviously, you have Florida. This time it's a neutral site in Atlanta. You go to Ole Miss towards the end of the season. You go to South Carolina. Uh, it truly is a very fortuitous schedule, especially because our out of conference games that we start the schedule with are Tennessee and Kentucky directionals. So you're really not going to expect too much, which I guess will be nice to kind of ease into the season, those first two games, barring anything crazy happening. And then you go to Fayetteville, Arkansas for your first SEC game. But Arkansas is going to be down, you'd like to assume. But I think it's gonna be a pretty exciting season. This is definitely the most experience Georgia's returned in a while, and it's proven experience. And even like they lost some receivers like Branch, Noah Thomas, Colby Young. You lost tight end Oscar Delp, but you replaced them with guys that like Austin Lucky that's been in the program playing all 4 of his years. You got a Georgia Tech transfer, Isaiah Canyon, that was like a 2-year starter at Tech. So it's like you have when you backfill with transfers and other things like Khalil Barnes from Clemson last year was like a 3-year starter at Clemson. So you're filling it with like not just like boom or bust kind of tools prospects. You're filling them with guys that have proven production at high levels of college football. And when you factor that in with a lot of continuity at the staff, like we talked about last podcast when we were talking about the Big Ten, it honestly sets up nicely for a great season for Georgia. I think it's going to depend on. There's going to be obviously, like you mentioned with quarterback, it's so dependent on quarterback. I think if you get the same Gunnar Stockton as last year, I don't think you still have a problem with the schedule. I think like a 10-2 is like the floor of this with if you got the same Stockton. And I think if Stockton elevates his game a little more, improves on what he's struggled with, I think 12-0 is a very realistic possibility because Georgia will be favored in all 12 of their games and probably favored by double digits in about 6 or 7 of them.
Sam?
I think when you were talking about parallels, Charlie, parallel that I was thinking with Georgia is they remind me a lot of just Scotty Scheffler in the way that even when they're not at their best and they're not playing to the highest of their level or capabilities that we've seen, they're still always lurking and they're still always in the hunt. And Georgia also the past few years hasn't had the most, flashy or elite position groups, especially skill groups like running back, receiver, et cetera, or, a top 10 pick at quarterback, yet they always find ways to win. And that's kind of like what we just talked about with having an elite coach and having a floor set to a certain level to where you can almost expect what you're going to get day in and day out. Also, there's just very few question marks on this roster. Like, there's a lot of teams you can go through in the SEC where it's like, well, this team is going to be very successful dependent on how the O-line plays or dependent on how our quarterback plays or if our receivers step up, etc. Georgia doesn't really have that because you know kind of what you're going to get from Gunnar Stockton. You know what you're going to get from the receiver group. The defense is always going to play to a very high level. And, back to the Scotty thing, like Scotty doesn't win for a few weeks and, doesn't show up well in majors for a few times through. Start to think like, man, he's due, right? And I think this year you're kind of getting the feel of the dogs might be due.
Yeah. This one thing I think Sam just touched on, like offensive line, and I think that's one thing I didn't even point out is I think this is the most experience for like returning that Georgia's had in a while on the O line. Projected right now, there's going to be a true freshman starter at right guard, but the other 4 positions are all 2 or 3 year starters, except their right tackle, who is like a freshman All-American. So there's just so much talent across the board on this team. Like Sam said, it's hard to see an avenue in like an unbiased perspective of how this team isn't exactly like Sam says, due or like knocking on the door.
I think you guys covered. I agree with everything that was said. I want to move on to Texas though. Now, what are the Texas Longhorns? What is the answer to that? They went 9-3 last year, had a big win against Michigan in a bowl game where Arch looked awesome. The year prior, they go to or no, what was the year? What did they do in 2025 or 2024?
Lost to Ohio State.
Yeah. And then 2023, they lose in the semis to Washington. So this team's been around. They've had Ewers, they've had Arch Manning. So let's use the same kind of framework for what I listed for Georgia. Like, do you have a top six coach? Do you have a top six quarterback? Do you have elite NFL caliber production? Yes. Sark's a top six coach. Yes. Arch Manning's probably like a top three quarterback, in my opinion. And then their NFL talent is insane. Arch, Cam Coleman, Colin Simmons, Rasheed Biles. Dude, shout out Rasheed Biles, Pitt legend. Um, so what is Texas going to be? Sam, I guess I want to kick it to you. Since you're living in Austin, what's the temperature been around the city, and what can you tell us about the Texas Longhorns this year?
Yeah, obviously, what I'm hearing from camp is that this is the best supporting cast that Arch is going to have.
Mm, mhm.
And I think, like we've said this a lot,
Have you
it's
been able to get into the facility? They've let you in?
yeah, I got some guys.
Got you. Okay, got you. Okay, sweet, sweet, sweet.
I saw the Cam Coleman catch.
Did you? Oh, wow.
But I think that like we say this a lot, and I think this rings probably the most true for Texas, especially this year. It's the question of if not now, then when. Because like I just said, this is the best cast that Arch is gonna have. You saw almost the tale of two teams last year with Texas and how they obviously had that tough first game against Ohio State. Don't really knock them for losing that. Then they go and lose at Florida, which at the time seemed okay, but they went 4-8. And at the end of the day, it's inexcusable to lose those games, especially if you want to be, an elite program, an elite team. So I think the offense doesn't have necessarily as many question marks. The biggest thing for them is, how well are you going to be able to protect Arch? And the defense, oddly enough, has been better than the offense in the past two seasons, which you wouldn't really expect from a Steve Sarkisian coach team. And like you just brought up with Rasheem Biles and Colin Simmons, like their defense is loaded, and
Loaded.
they got the must bus in town to tighten things up even more, which will be an interesting move. But another thing is their schedule is really hard, and um, this is going to be a team that's going to have to bring it every single week, and they can't afford to lose. That game at Florida. They don't even play at Florida this year, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But that being said, like this team is
you can't lose like at Tennessee. Like there's no
right. Like
margin for that to
this
happen.
team is most likely going to be favored in every single game this season. So then I also wonder is like even if they do make the playoff and lose in the first round, like what's the temperature check
Yeah.
in Austin?
Yeah. This schedule when you just look at it for a while and you just let your eyes just like watch it and you just let the logos like pop into your eyes, it's like holy shit. Ohio State, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Florida, Ole Miss. Then they get Mississippi State, but a night game in Starkville, that's not like going to Piscataway, New Jersey to play Rutgers. Like that's not like going to wherever Purdue is. Where's Purdue? It's somewhere in Indiana. Is it just Purdue, Indiana?
No, it's West.
Yeah. Well, our editor he'll figure that one out for us. We'll get back to you on that. But when you go to Mississippi State and then you follow it with Missouri, LSU, then you go to
West
Fayetteville,
Lafayette.
West Lafayette. Thank you, Sam. Good job. And then you finish the year at Texas A&M. Brutal schedule, but I really think they're going to have awesome quarterback play this year. I'm really excited. Everybody is this is the same thing, Sam, with Arch. The same thing you talk about with the SEC Big Ten debate, where there's no nuance. Everybody, it's just binary. You have to be in one camp. Why does everybody have to grade Arch's season in 2025 as like we loved him or we hated him? Like he sucks or he's awesome. Like I actually do think I don't think he was awesome last year. I think he's gonna be awesome. I think he's gonna be one of the best quarterbacks in college football, but there's no need to be like, oh yeah, he sucked against Ohio State last year. This guy sucks, man. Like, not a big game guy. Like you don't know ball. Watch the games, bro. Please. He's really good. He's obviously really good. Now, again, you might not think you don't have to like love him, but I'm really excited to see what Arch can do. I hope like I hope he's vindicated because from what I hear, there's like more hatred around Arch Manning than there is people like propping him up and being like, dude, this guy's a really good quarterback.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like obviously Texas had this for I think the last 2 years where it's like you feel like they have all these pieces and whatnot. It's like the question that I still have is, are they going to actually do it? On paper, this team is like a top two roster in college football. And on paper, and I guess expectations are for them to be that. I'm excited to see how Cam Coleman is in an
Mhm.
actual functional offense and not what he was had to deal with at Auburn the last 2 years.
What do you mean? He had Jackson Arnold and Hugh Freeze.
Yeah. And then I'm excited to see with Rasheem Biles. He was really good at Pitt, obviously. He was a big game player. I'm interested to see because obviously their defense the last 2 years was good with their old defensive coordinator, and Sark felt that they would be better with Muschamp, who's been a Georgia staff for the last couple of years. So I don't know. I feel like it partially could be like a Sark freaking out, trying to make sure everything is right for this year because, like Sam said, if they don't get it right here, the pucker meter is going to be rising in Austin. Um, they got a lot of transfers in, like Hollywood Smothers, Raleek Brown. We mentioned Rasheem Biles and Coleman, and you got returning receivers. It's just the question is, can Arch do it and can Texas do it? And I like Arch. I think his tape last year was not as bad or as good as what people made it out to be. There was a lot of drops and not a lot of help from his supporting cast. But I'm excited to see it because, like I said, it's really just factors into can they get over the hump.
Yeah, I think one thing when we talk about Georgia, you talk about how consistently they play football, right? There's like always a level of compete that you just like they require to even be in the same arena as them. That's where I think Texas needs to get to because Texas is more of a like there's more volatility in their performance. You watch them against Texas A&M and you're like, wow, if this team snuck into the playoff, they'd be such a problem. But then you watch them against Florida or you watch them against Mississippi State and you're like, so I feel like that is where the next evolution of Texas, if they really want to be, and now, and even in this day and age, guys, like you can lose two football games, like, and still win the national championship. Like Ohio State did it. You can lose two football games, especially when you have this schedule, but you can't lose like you can't lose to Florida and you can't lose to Mississippi State. You got to lose to Ole Miss in Oklahoma and win out. So the volatility is what I'm going to be looking for. Like, is their performance? Because even like, didn't Utsa, wasn't that Cole Kublik's best tackling game of the year last year
No.
against Texas?
Was it? It was us
Yeah,
or
they look
Sam Houston,
slow
right?
Yeah,
in
no,
the games after Ohio State too.
yeah, but I'm saying
Yeah.
the Utsa game, that's Cole Kublik graded Utsa's tackling the greatest he's ever seen that year. So like you don't want to be doing that as Texas. But yeah, I'm excited to see where they're gonna go. I mean, fascinating game September 12th. So you have to get to a TV. Have to get to a TV. Okay, next team. Do you guys actually I'm just gonna pick right here. I'm gonna pick Texas A&M. So Texas A&M is not one of the, I think they're like seventh in the odds market right now for the SEC, but they were one of the best finishers in the SEC last year. So why is that? Well, a lot of it has to do, I think they lost, well, they lost Colin Klein. They lost their offensive coordinator last year to Kansas State. But I really think the question is, what is Marcel Reed? I want to throw you guys a good stat I found on Marcel Reed. This is Bill Connolly, ESPN. He said he was one of only three quarterbacks in the SEC to throw for 3,000 and rush for over 550 sack adjusted yards. But he finished at seven in the conference QBR rankings. So why is that? Why is he one of the most impressive quarterbacks in the SEC and also his QBR is not one of the most impressive in the SEC? Well, a lot of it is poor decision making, failing to protect the football, and just throwing inaccurate passes. So again, just like Texas has a lot of volatility, the same volatility exists in Marcel Reed's game. I happen to be a stockholder in Marcel Reed. I also think he's got a chance to have two NFL first round picks next year. I wonder how, I think Craver probably will be one, and Ashton Bethel Roman is another guy that should be on people's radar to creep into that first round. So, dude, you return awesome receiving production, but the road schedule for the Aggies is what I want to bring up. Have you guys seen their road schedule?
Yep.
LSU, Missouri, Alabama, the real Columbia, South Carolina, and Oklahoma. So they need to go 3-2 in these games. So you got to beat you need to go 3-2, or the season is probably off in terms of them going to the playoff, which their fan base expects them to go to the playoff, Sam. There was one of the teams that you mentioned.
Yeah, I don't really see it this year with them. I think that they have a lot to overhaul on the offensive line. They lost six guys. I also think that the past two seasons, they have been blessed with scheduling and have avoided a lot of the best SEC teams, which played, credit to their final record and the fact that they, were one game away from the SEC championship in 2024 and last year made it to the playoff. They were one of two teams that, season really took a turn for the worst after playing South Carolina in a game that they like probably should have lost if it wasn't for a historic collapse.
Historic,
And
historic, historic
the
collapse.
I think like they lose that game and the narrative really changes around last season. And they ended up losing two of their last three games in Texas and then Miami. So I just think that like what you just said,
Did not look great in either of those games either.
right, and like what you just said, they got to go at LSU, at Alabama, at Oklahoma. Like those are three games where they're 99% going to be dogs. And I think that they're going to be one of those four to five teams that is not going to get through to the postseason. I also just think that like they've been blessed again with scheduling and have been able to get away with some of, Marcel Reed's flaws. And I think that this year it'll be exposed and that he won't make that third year leap that people might expect from him. So I'm out on the Aggies this year.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Sam talked about it. Don't have the stat in front of me, but I did see it that they have the biggest adjusted like schedule, like power ratings wise from their opponents in conference from last year to this year. It's a huge jump. Uh, like Sam talked about, they were very fortuitous at times last year. Kind of saw it when South Carolina was probably one of the more talented teams like they played, and you saw their struggles. Chuck mentioned Reed just being inefficient at times. He tended last year to like he would have huge like highlight plays, long passes to Craver or Concepcion, who Concepcion isn't there anymore. But he'd also like make the easy passes look hard. So yeah, I'm gonna go with what Sam said. I don't expect much success from them this year. Really tough schedule. And I think like a 9-3, 8-4 season is like a 9-3 season is going to be good with this schedule, and just depends on if the Aggie faithful are happy with that result.
Do you guys know the odds market? Could you name me in order from 1 to 5, the SEC odds market?
I think I could. It's
Okay.
Georgia first, Texas, Alabama's 3, Oklahoma's going to be 4, and LSU's 5.
They're both at 900. So ding, 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 ding. That's nailed, Arch. We're gonna talk Oklahoma here. I want to talk to Oklahoma and LSU because these are the teams that there's probably only room for one of them, especially like with their schedules. So Brent Venables. First off, are we here on Brent Venables? Are we here? Are we here? What's everybody's temperature on him? Because I'm here.
He's not the one that I'm worried about.
No? Okay, you're here, Arch.
I'm at an angle. I'm more just, I'm
Yeah,
in
you guys
between,
are angled.
just like, yeah.
I'm a Venables guy. I like that. I just like how he plays defense. Their struggle has been, can they get a level of consistency with their offense? We saw it before the Mateer injury, and then post Mateer injury, the defense just put the team on their back. They had very little run game to speak of, but they return 11 of 20 players this year on defense that had 200 plus snaps. They have one of my favorite, defensive backfields. So they've got Eli Bowen, Peyton Bowen, and Cortland Gilroy. I think that's how you say it. In the defensive backs, but week two, absolute war with Michigan on the horizon, and then you go at Georgia in week four, and then Red River week five. So in the first 5 weeks, you're basically jumped by the NCAA. I mean, you got to bring your lunch pail to work if you're Oklahoma. Like, I wonder, even in the building, there's got to be a different level of intensity for Oklahoma than there is for these other squads that, get like Georgia. Like, you're getting, directional schools, bad G6 school, and then you start play. Like, you open the gate and it's like, welcome to the SEC, welcome to college football, Oklahoma. I guess, what do you guys think of Mateer? I'm just like, I don't know about Mateer. He's got to show me. The one piece I really love about Oklahoma is Isaiah Satania. I think for anybody who is not familiar with Oklahoma, they don't remember, who was their best receiver. He's going to pop off the screen. I believe he's number 5. Isaiah Satania is disgusting. He's in the Biletnikoff conversation. He's going to be a first round NFL draft receiver probably next year. So on defense, exactly, dude, the Oklahoma's going to be a top 3 SEC defense. Like, you can almost shoe that in. Do they get enough consistency, especially early in the year, from their offense? What say you guys?
I think it's interesting because, like you mentioned, they got to start fast. They don't have, they played UTEP, and UTEP is literally horrendous, like terrible. But you go to Michigan right after that, and then you have a breather versus New Mexico, who's a good G6 school, and then you go to at Georgia versus Texas. Your first your season could be done by October 10th.
Yeah.
I'm a little
Yeah, if
hesitant on
you go
Mateer.
0-3 in those, it's over.
Yeah, I'm a little hesitant on Mateer. I was a little I was actually a lot last year. And it's at times he had flashes, but he was the prototypical make hard things look easy, easy things look hard quarterback that everybody would get wowed by the hard plays, but then like Sam's quote, he looks like he couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time with some of his footwork and decision making. I think their defense is going to be great again. Like, they lost a lot. They also return a lot. David Stone's going to be a D lineman for them this year, who's going to just be awesome. With the schedule, it is very difficult, but I think Venable's defense in the weapons around Mateer can carry them at least to like a playoff conversation, almost like SEC championship contender.
Yeah, I would say the biggest question for me, like when you're asking about Venables, I think it's the Arbuckle offense. And, you saw at times last year, it just didn't really click compared to what people thought, this high-powered offense was going to be. And I worry, and this is getting a little bit nitpicky too, is like looking at the way that their season went last year, there was a lot of not necessarily luck, just games that they won where they didn't necessarily like win the full 4 quarters. Like
Yeah.
they win that Tennessee game behind like 6 field goals from their kicker. They beat Bama off of getting outgained by a million yards. They
Yeah, like pick 6.
Right, like they struggled in a lot of games, yet found ways to win, and I worry about that being like able to be replicated this year. So that would be my like bit one like nitpicky holdback is now with this schedule where you're playing Georgia, Texas, and Michigan in the span of a month, and where last year you started out slow, they really ramped it up. I mean, they won their last like 5 games last year to make the playoff. They can't afford to get off to a slow start offensively in the beginning of the season because that's where the meat and potatoes of their schedule lies. And, even if they make it out of that with one loss, you're looking at the back end where you got at Florida, Ole Miss, A&M, at Missouri. You can't lose more than one of those games. So
Mhm.
the margin for error is razor thin with Oklahoma this year. And with a volatile quarterback and offense, I just worry about, how well they can, sustain winning games at the buzzer.
Are you more in on LSU or are you more in on Oklahoma?
Probably LSU.
Why?
I just think that outside of the stats, I just think that the storyline and the Lane and really embracing the villain role this season, um, their schedule is like not as bad as it seems. There's a lot of opportunity there. And I think that like this is arguably one of the most talented quarterbacks that Lane has gotten his paws on. So
Yep. Yeah, I think you're right. I think if I were to, I just think Lane Kiffin is so inevitable in terms of offensive football. His last five offenses, four of them have been in the top 10 for yards per game. And the one that wasn't, I believe it was 2023, they finished 13th. So the guy, they're just going to put points on the board, gain yards, and then you give him probably like one of the most talented quarterbacks in college football. We talked about Sam Levitt this summer. We talked about him last year. Levitt, when Levitt is playing at his best, like for instance, 2025 Texas Tech, he put the team on his back, and him and Jordan Tyson, it was spectacular. It was the most artistic football you could play offensively. So you give him Sam Levitt, Lane Kiffin, and we know what Lane Kiffin can do with quarterbacks. They also do. They bring in a ton of really good receivers. Jackson Harris from Hawaii, Jace Brown, Kansas State, Winston Watkins follows Lane from Ole Miss. This team is gonna just. They got Jordan Seaton at tackle from Colorado. Like they just have dudes. And again, the problem with Levitt is there's games he tries to do way too much, and there's games he makes bad decisions. But we've seen Lane Kiffin develop young quarterbacks, specifically as recently as Jackson Dart, Trinidad Chambliss, of like when you play in the Lane system, there's so many gimmies because he's just schematically ahead of where most defensive coordinators are that the game becomes a lot easier. And then you add top tier weapons. So you get the best play design, the best playmakers, and the best protection. That's usually a recipe for really good quarterback play. So if I think just Lane's gonna squeeze a lot more juice from his quarterback than what Ben Arbuckle's gonna squeeze from his quarterback and John Mateer. I also think Levitt's better than Mateer. So I think LSU Blake, one thing I liked, he retained Blake Baker from the previous staff.
yep, and they have
So
Charlie White, like the underrated storyline about LSU. Like people love to talk about coaching staff continuity, and while it's different teams, and still a lot of continuity. And
yeah,
having his OC, like, and back to the Oklahoma thing, like, if you line them up position by position group, I think LSU wins almost every position group on the field.
hmm
I would say the biggest question mark for them is this patched together offensive line, and
yeah,
especially in a system where Lane Kiffin offense is going to be a lot more up tempo. Like I wonder how I can't really speak highly on offensive line configuration and how much more difficult it is to play in a system like that. But I feel like you would think that that's going to be the biggest hinge is the O line.
yeah,
And two, like you look at this and like every SEC team has a really tough schedule, but like they got at Ole Miss, A&M, and they have a little bit of a break. McNeese, Kentucky State, Mississippi State, Auburn. They go to Bama. They got Bama at home, and they got Texas at home
yep.
at Tennessee. So you find even if they lose one of those games at the beginning, and then if they lose one of the games at the end, you're 10-2. So I see no world where they don't go 10-2.
Yeah, November. I said like November. That's pretty much their schedule. If they can be 2-1 against Bama, Texas, Tennessee, or even if they go 1-2 and they like really they won out, they were undefeated going into November, you're fine. So yeah, there's a more margin for error on the schedule. Now, again, if you lose like against Auburn or Kentucky, then which Kiffin has always struggled against Kentucky in his uh, Ole Miss era. That becomes a problem. But I think you're right. I think if I were to put my eggs in a basket, it would be LSU over Oklahoma because their offense just is going to be much more consistent.
I have one more thing on the schedule side, and something that people are thinking the opposite, like rightfully so. I actually think LSU is at an advantage in the Ole Miss game that the game is in Ole Miss. I think that the external, crowd factor, they're going to be throwing shit on the field the whole game. They're going to be so caught up in the moment and in the crowd. This is Ole Miss. That LSU is just going to have the advantage of, all right, all business. We're walking in here. We're going to take care of our job and move on. Versus Ole Miss is going to get caught up in the whole act of, you saw it when Tennessee played Ole Miss. And you get so engulfed in, the crowd wanting to get back at Lane and wanting to beat Lane that I actually think that it could turn. And LSU is just going to be able to just stay steady and not really have to deal with the ebbs and flows of emotions as much as Ole Miss would have in this game being in Oxford.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about, or I don't know, like you mentioned the wide receiver transfers. Jace Brown was good at Kansas State. Eugene Wilson was awesome at Florida when he was healthy. Jackson Harris at Stanford and then Hawaii was awesome. He's probably, I think he'll be the best receiver transfer out of that group. I mean,
Yeah.
like Chuck mentioned, is going to be good. Trey'Nez Green, awesome tight end. Like the roster, like Sam was saying, I heard,
Yeah.
like it's better than like when you compare it to Oklahoma, like because that's like their comp in the odds market. Pretty comparable. I guess my only pushback with LSU is how fast is it a year one, year one success, or is it a year one like building up for year 2 and 3 and 4 if he even stays that long at the LSU for Kiffin. And also Sam Levitt, obviously he's had some injuries last year, especially with his foot. Interested to see how he deals with that if there's any more lingering injuries, because obviously his injury last year didn't seem as severe at first with Dillingham, and then it ends up like Dillingham in the press conference saying that he thinks he should be back, but with like foot injuries like he had specifically, it was just always something happening, and then so if he's not healthy, I think their chances definitely go worse for LSU. Obviously, you got a talented freshman and a talented Elon transfer. Shout out to Phoenix in
Shout
the
out Lane
quarterback
Clark.
room, but it's like it's a very tough end of that season. I mean, Bama, Texas, at Tennessee, at Arkansas, tough 4 games. I mean, I think week 1 will be really tough too against Clemson. So I think the question is it like I said, is it the year one of like instant success, or is year one going to be the building blocks for the next couple of years?
Well said. I want to talk Alabama. Now, I think there's like two things that I think the season hinges on. Both pretty granular, but one is Ryan Williams. In 2024, Ryan Williams was looked at, he's the receiver at Alabama. He was looked at as the same caliber prospect as Jeremiah Smith. They were like going blow for blow in terms of highlights of freshman year. 2025 rolls around, Jeremiah Smith pulls away completely from what Ryan Williams was. And Williams struggled with drops. I think he was like a 13% drop rate, and which was like the highest of high volume pass catchers. His production just completely dropped from his freshman year. But if Ryan Williams is like 1,000-yard receiver this year, and Ryan Williams finds his confidence back, maybe gains some weight, I think like that would completely reconstruct what Alabama is, because you would have him and Lottie Brooks, and that might be the twitchiest SEC receiver duo we've seen in a long, long time. Like those guys are absolute problems if Ryan Williams is like an apex predator in the SEC receiver room, right? So that's part one. Part two is side of ball dynamics. So side of ball dynamics is the thing that Alabama's actually been better at is defense. Cade Womack has done a really good job with this Alabama defense. I think they have the best terms of like depth secondary. Like I can just go through the names of their secondary. Like you've got Bray Hubbard and Keon Sabb at safety. You've got Red Morgan at nickel, Dejon Lee and Zabian Brown. The Thorpe Award, the Paycom Thorpe Award watch list got released today, and Zabian Brown was on it. Like they've got absolute, and I think there are multiple Alabama guys on it. Like just multiple ball players in the secondary. They got Yanze Pierre at edge. They're just a really good defense. Now, their head coach is an offensive mastermind. So, side of ball dynamics means what do you think's easier to fix? Your side of the ball or the side of the ball that you don't coach? Go ask Lincoln Riley how hard it's been to revamp a defense when he's not a defensive coach, right? So I think because Alabama struggled on offense last year, I think you could have a little bit of confidence going into this year, like, well, at least that is the bread and butter of Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb. So I'm looking to see. I think their quarterback battle is going to be a huge thing. I mean, Austin Mack, good. He's been with DeBoer for the past like 4 or 5 years. And then you've got a sensational freshman in Keelan Russell. I wonder how that goes. But even so, whoever loses the job is still a really capable backup. And we've seen backups come in. We saw it at Alabama twice. We saw Tua come in for Alabama and beat Georgia in the national championship. And we also saw Jalen Hurts come in to SEC championship after Tua got hurt and lead Alabama to victory. So again, it's important. I think by week 2 they're probably gonna have a starter just because I wouldn't be surprised if like the Eastern Carolina game, it's like you go, I go, maybe every other drive or one plays a half. But by week 2, you're already in conference play. You play Kentucky. I'm sure you're gonna want to have like a set starter by then. So I would expect them to DeBoer to pick one by week 2. But again, long rambling Alabama take, but dude, I think Vegas, they're third in the odds market. I feel like Alabama, the public sentiment is like the public's down on Bama. Like there's not a ton of buzz. Am I off with that?
No, I think one of the main reasons of their odds is the schedule. We talked about with A&M how they've had some pretty nice SEC draws, and it seems like Bama got the better of the draws with these like top groups. Calling it Tide-tober, where they got to play Georgia, Tennessee, and A&M 3 weeks in a row, and they have off, and then they play at LSU.
Yep.
That's their season essentially. Outside of that, they finished the last 3 with Vandy, Chattanooga, and Auburn. And they start the season with East Carolina, Kentucky, Florida State, South Carolina, and Mississippi State. Those first 5 games, they're most likely going to be over a touchdown favorite in all of them. Those last 3 games, most likely going to be an over touchdown favorite in all of them. Go 2-2 and you're in. That's a simple answer.
Yeah.
Will there be more of a presence of a run game? That's another huge determinant of Alabama this year in their long-term success. But I think as long as they, figure out the quarterback position, which you just have to trust DeBoer will, and have everything relatively cleaned up for that stretch, they're in good position to make the playoff, even if they're not at as high of a level as previous Alabama teams. And this could be another situation where there's 9-3 teams that are probably better than them, but won't get an opportunity to go to the playoff based on the fact that, Alabama just wasn't challenged as much as a Texas or an Ole Miss or LSU or et cetera. So I think as long as they don't have a massive screw up, like at Kentucky or South Carolina or against Auburn, like they should be in the driver's seat to, hit that 10-win total.
Yeah, I don't think you were off when you said, Chuck, when you were talking about like public sentiment, because for a while, I believe it's moved or odds have moved, but for a while, their over/under win total was 8.5. At least like that's what it opened at. And like Sam said, like when you look at the schedule, there are some challenging spots, like challenging teams. Like at Kentucky won't be easy. South Carolina, like at Mississippi State, those games aren't easy, but they're also like you should win. And even in your toss-ups, like Sam said, the October, like you should be 3-1 in those games.
Mm-hmm.
Can they run the ball? offensive line, if can they like produce? If running backs can produce, I think Daniel Hill is good. I just don't think he has like the juice to
Yeah.
like really scare a defense. I mean, there was clips last year. He just doesn't have the breakaway speed that some of these older Alabama running backs had, dating back to like TJ Yeldon and whatnot. They always had Richardson. They always had breakaway speed. That's kind of been Bama's always had good running backs, and they really haven't the last couple of years. Since Gibbs really in 23 or 22 season. Quarterback battle is interesting because I don't really care too much who wins it because I think if it's gone this far, I think both of these guys are really capable and just good enough to
Good point.
win a lot of football games in the SEC. Also, I think if Russell wins, the upside is way higher. Mac, like you said, been in the system a while. He looked decent in the Rose Bowl whenever he was playing. Like they were also down like 35 at that point, but yeah, I think Bama is probably after all the teams we've talked about. I think I like them the most, other than like the Georgia and Texas, to make it out like the third team.
Yeah. Okay. I want to dive into some South Carolina because I want to give this segment some. I don't want to have to zoom past it because I want to get you guys out of here at a reasonable hour. But South Carolina, Sam, can I give you what I've seen, and then
Yeah, I was just saying you can start this. I want to
Okay.
hear.
All right. This is what I think. I think one, Mike Shula was a terrorist last year. Are we in alignment there?
Well, I mean, Lenoris is a known pocket passer, so I think he was just trying to like really dive into his skill set there.
Yeah. So for those who aren't getting, or for the moms not understanding Sam's sarcasm, I mean, what the offensive coordinator for South Carolina did last year was insane in terms of just completely. I mean, Lenore Sellers is unbelievable. I think his like break tackle rate is like something absurd. He's so good with the ball in his hands, and they removed that from his game and turned him into a pocket passer. Oh, by the way, the receivers were not where they needed to be if we wanted to run that type of system as well. Just dereliction of duty from Mike Shula from Mike Shula. Now we've got Kendall Briles in from TCU, son of Art Briles. I think that system we saw Bryce Petty light it up for Baylor once upon a time. We saw Josh Hoover light it up for TCU. I think this system is going to be very. It's going to
Advantageous.
yeah, it's going to encapsulate a lot more of what Lenore Sellers is good at. Um, so that's part one. Part two is, can the offensive line be 25 to 50% better than it was last year in terms of sack rate and pressure rate? Because if that happens, Lenore's is going to have a really good year. He's going to put himself in position to go really high in the NFL draft. And at that point, it's like, okay, 6.5, we're probably getting to 8. And if you start flirting with 8, could you flirt higher with that? So that's like the bull case of South Carolina. The bear case is they just don't have the roster to go do it. Sam?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to 2 years ago to leave this off, and I'm gonna to be a little bit of a piggyback of what I said with Oklahoma. So you look at 2024 and a team that went 9-3, won their last 6 games in a row. They had a couple bad bounces early on in the Alabama and the LSU game. I'm not going to talk about officiating, but they lost those games off of an unfortunate few plays. Did I pause? Okay, they lost those games on a couple bad plays, right? Still go 9-3, one of the best seasons in program history, all things considered. Next year, amazing expectations. They don't win those nail biter tight games like they did the year prior against Clemson, against Missouri. Again, I mean, they blew out A&M, but had a lot of advantageous plays happen to them as well. So they had basically every single bad result that could possibly happen to you last year. You blow a game against A&M. You lose a heartbreaker against Bama down the stretch. You lose a tough one against Clemson down the stretch. You have chances to win against Ole Miss, Missouri, and Oklahoma, and LSU, all games that were within one possession in the second half. Now, how can they take that and turn it into what success would look like for year 6 of Shane Beamer. Oddly enough, their record is just around 500 in the 5 years that he has been at South Carolina, and the seasons have been nothing of the sort. He has gone 6-6, overachieved, 8-4, overachieved, 5-7, massive underachievement. Next year, 9-3, massive overachievement. Last year, 4-8, massive underachievement. When you predict things, you like to predict based off of trends. We see where this trend is going. Outside of that, they had a really, really poor season last year, obviously, and had a lot of holes, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Like you just said, Charlie, the offensive line was statistically one of the worst in all of Division I, let alone the SEC or the Power Five. And they did everything in their power to revamp that. They went out and got the second best offensive lineman in the portal in Jacarius Peak. They were able to get Emmanuel Poku from East Carolina, who should be another outstanding starter for South Carolina.
Mhm.
They went out and got transfer receivers who have been generating a lot of buzz in camp so far. And kind of back to
Is Nitro Tuggle is he part of the equation?
yeah, Nitro and then DJ Black. So both of them are an improvement from last year. A guy like Mazio Bennett, who had over 300 yards his freshman year, to then last year having less than 100. Massive underachievement for him.
Yeah.
I hope to see him improve. Nick Harbor, obviously a freak talent. Hope to see him take another leap. So this is probably the best receiving core that Lenoris is going to have. The running back room has some question marks, but seems like South Carolina oddly always, figures that position out. And at the end of the day, we like to say this a lot. When you have a quarterback that is as talented as Lenoris is, and regardless of your feelings on South Carolina, where you think they're going to be, you cannot deny that Lenoris Sellers is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the entire NCAA this year. And we saw a lot of flashes of him in 2024 being this top 5, top 10 draft pick. And if Kendall Briles is able to unlock that and get him back to where he was at the end of 2024, this team has enough talent to where they're going to be able to win some really big games. They have some great home matchups. They play Tennessee at home. They play Georgia at home. They play Texas A&M at home. So there's 3 really big opportunities to spoil some seasons. And like you said, Charlie, if this talent plays up and if they can get some good bounces early on in the year, they go to Alabama, which is going to be tough, but have played them well the last few years. They go to Oklahoma, which is going to be another tough one. And they go to Florida. So those are 3 really big road games. But, if you can pull 1 or 2 of those out, the outlook of the season is going to look vastly different than, preseason expectations may be. And in not surprising fashion, this team has been generating a lot of, off-season buzz just based on the fact that they have so much talent. The defensive side of the ball was much better than people expected last year, even though the stats didn't necessarily support that. And again, when you have a top 10 draft pick in Dylan Stewart on the other end of the ball, he can wreck a game. Lenoris Sellers can wreck a game. You have 2 massively talented NFL players on your team. You are going to win a game or 2 because of that. And I have a fun random fact that I found out the other day looking at some things. Since Beamer has started at South Carolina, they are 0-5 in week 3 games. This year they play Mississippi State in week 3. And this is as much of a hinge game as there is hinge games throughout the entire season for any team. Yeah. They can win that game and go 3-0 into Alabama with a little bit of confidence, a little bit of mojo. Even if they lose that game, you're still 3-1 playing Kentucky. The outlook of the team is significantly different with a win against Mississippi State in week 3 than a loss. If you lose to Mississippi State in week 3, kiss it goodbye, season's over. Good night. Beamer's seat is probably, scorching hot, and he could be gone before we get to Cocktober. But I just think, I have a feeling, and I just think that when you have this much talent, when, the pressure of wanting to play up and, guys fighting for their life in Shane Beamer, how can you count them out? And my forward pass take, there's been one other forward pass guarantee, and it's a non-Power 5 school getting College game day. The second is going to be South Carolina defeats Georgia in Columbia on November 21st. En route to a 9-3 season.
Does that get them in?
Yes.
Really
Yeah,
good. That was really good TV.
Yeah, I was really agreeing with a lot of what he was saying until the end. Obviously, as you can see from the I think obviously as y'all mentioned, the switch from Shula to Kendall Browse is going to be awesome this year. I think Browse, his offense, he called it TCU, much more kind of what Lenore Sellers is going to flourish in instead of the pro style, like drop back pocket passer. Just really quick, I think Nitro Tuggle is going to be awesome for y'all. He was one time
What
at
a
Georgia. He was really good at Georgia, and as a freshman, showed a lot of flashes. It wasn't that productive, but it was solely because of not getting targeted. So he has the talent to be at one of the best programs in the country. He had to leave Georgia because of, you guess it, speeding issues and arrests. And he spent his mandatory 1 year at Purdue, and now he's at South Carolina. He's an awesome receiver. I think Little Norris Sellers is probably going to find him a lot. Not that high on Harbor, but, like Sam said, there's a lot of talent on this team. I don't know if I could say 9-3 and in the playoffs and beating Georgia, but I do think it'll be a hell of a lot better than last year.
That is crazy. He was at Purdue.
Yeah,
him and
Georgia
Lenore's are
transfers
boys.
always go to Purdue. Nitro?
Yeah, they're boys.
Nitro is like an Indiana kid.
When he was in the portal, Lenore's was recruiting him like pretty hard.
Oh, he's from Indiana, so we went back home.
Yeah, DJ Black has been making a lot of headway. He was at South Carolina before, and he came back.
Dude, it's insane. Dude, following just the high level stuff
Maybe
here.
it was. Yeah, he was. Oh, he committed there.
High level, it's so annoying. Like the NFL's become so much easier to follow in terms of like rosters because guys just are on the same team for 4 years. It's so hard to follow college football now. Like, dude, this Nitro Toggle went Georgia, Purdue, and then this is year 3 at South Carolina. Like, I just think like into the sport, they must do something, or else they're gonna slowly start losing the fabric of like, dude, Nitro Tuggle, like, he's a hired gun for South Carolina. Like, you, Sam, like, dude, you have a lot of loyalty to, like, Nick Harbor, Milnora Sellers, Dylan Stewart. Like, it's pretty cool that you're, like, 3 of your highest paid players are all guys that got recruited out of high school. Like, they chose to go to South Carolina. Same way you chose to go to South Carolina, right? So there's, like, like,
I
connection.
was recruited just as heavily as they.
Exactly, right? Like, you meant just as much to an organization on campus like they meant to an organization on campus, right? So because
Correct.
of those parallels, like, I mean, one guy controlled Williams-Brice Stadium, the other controlled group therapy. Like, they know what those places are. They've been. This stuff matters. They walk the same building. They walk to class the same way, right? So I think the more mercenary the college football gets, and like it's I don't think it'll ever be worse than what it is right now. Casual fans are just gonna not care as much because they're like, oh, is this guy even? Does he even like South Carolina or does he even like Georgia? Like he didn't pick to go to. This is his third school, you know. So I think big picture, like the sport has to change this because it's so frustrating to like just keep one as like a guy that has to keep up with it for his job slash hobby. It's really annoying. I didn't know Nitro Tuggle was at Purdue. How could you? Anyway, side tangent. All right, we're going rapid fire time. Everybody kind of gets to answer. Like, I'm just gonna go one by one. Uh, Arch, Tennessee. Your thoughts?
They have an interesting schedule. Obviously, you mentioned they play Duska's Fighting Owls. They have so much returning. They have so much returning on offense, but the problem is the only one that's really not returning is their quarterback, and that position is like a mystery right now. Good defense pieces. I mean, they just got Knowles in from Penn State. You got that Penn State edge, Chaz Coleman, but he's not even with the team anymore. It'll be interesting. I do think they have so much talent, like returning everywhere else except quarterback. So, just like they're just like a team, probably like a patented 8-4 SEC team. It's like good but not great.
I'm in alignment. Sam, your thoughts on Vandy?
Massive regression. I think that they have to. We touched on this. Forget when. I think that they kind of have to play Jared Curtis, and their hand is going to get forced. And I think that there's going to be a big learning curve for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like also when you go 10-2, it's going to be really hard to follow that up. And I don't think that's going to happen. I don't even know what their win total is, but I would go as far to say as they don't make a bowl game this year.
It's like 4.5 or 5.5.
5.5 right now. Yeah, they're. I think they're going to be like a trend. They're similar to how South Carolina is. Like they got to pick their spot to be good. Like it's trend in, trend out. That's kind of going to be Vanderbilt. Like Vanderbilt in 2 years, like that's the year they got to be good when Curtis is a junior, or Curtis next year. It's not. I don't think they're just perennially good now. I mean, this conference is way too competitive. I'll take Florida. John Summerall. They're actually at 7.5 their win total. So Vegas kind of likes what Florida has going on. I think Florida's a team that like throughout my entire life, their brand has just been so good. Like I always knew about Florida as a kid, whether it was like the Tim Tebow era, the Urban Meyer Tim Tebow era, into like the Dan Mullen era. Like we're not that far removed. Like it was 2020 when Kyle Trask and Kadarius Toney and Dan Mullen took, in my opinion, the best college football team I've ever laid eyes on to the wire in the SEC championship in the 2020 tie, like a vintage Nick Saban squad. So that was only 5 years ago. What's happened? Well, they fired Dan Mullen. Billy Napier came in, sent Gainesville ablaze. I think I think they're gonna just be John Summerall. I think they're gonna adopt his ethos, his aura. Like Aaron Philo's not going to throw for 3,500 yards this year. Aaron Philo's probably going to get loose in the run game. Jaden Ball's probably going to average 25 carries a game. I think they're going to shorten games like that. They're going to play good defense. They're going to be like a John Summerall ethos type of squad. I don't know if that gets them over 7.5 wins, but I do think it gets them around that line. Sam?
You guys see their new uniform release today?
I did not. Let me go look this up.
Very disappointing.
Barriers.
Like how their one that they came out with is cool, the throwback, but the orange one it's sad because you have the best color scheme in all of sports, arguably. And
Whoa, dude, the cream ones are sick.
look at the one they're the Denver Broncos. Look at the Broncos ones.
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen these, Sam. I thought you were talking about the throwback ones.
No, yeah, they came out today. They have like an all blue, which is kind of cool, but
All blue is cool.
Yeah, I'm not in on the Broncos ones suck.
Yeah, like the all orange is elite. They actually have the best
you're talking
uniforms.
about the orange with the blue and the white?
Yeah, what are we doing?
Dude, but the white is pretty cool. And the all blue. Like I like the old like the old like the one with the F on the helmet. That was really cool.
What cream ones are you talking about, Chuck? Are those the throwback ones?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, those are nice.
Yeah, those are nice.
But like I think they're like the Gatorade ones is like the name of the uniform.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the blue helmet's cool, but like yeah.
I think I think Florida will be interesting. They got FAU will be a tough test. Not tough test week 1, but that'll be a frisky G6 team that's returning quarterback, coordinators, head coach, receivers. I'm not going to call it the USF of last year, like when they lost to them, but I mean that's the game that Florida better be in order quick.
Yeah. I think Florida's going to be like a big TV team. Like they're going to get me in front of a TV. Like I'm going to want to watch, see how Florida's up, see what Florida's up to. Yeah, dude, dude, the Steve Spurrier Florida ones are clean as hell. My goodness. They're not cream, by the way. They're white. My screen was just a little messed up. Wow. That's gorgeous. Okay, we gotta keep doing this so we can do buy sell holds relatively quickly. Um, Pick a team, Sam. Tell me something about them.
We didn't go into Ole Miss, and
Oh, dude, yeah, we do have to get into Ole Miss.
yeah, I
Correct.
think briefly. I mean, this is probably one of the most talked about SEC teams this offseason, just based on the departure of Lane and the return of Trinidad. And it's a huge prove it year for this team. For number one, Trinidad being able to establish himself as a non-Lane Kiffin merchant and Charlie Weiss merchant, and can he take that next step? He struggled at times last year. I go back a lot to the Georgia game that they lost, where they heated him up a lot towards the end, and he really struggled. Um, but similar to what we were saying about Lenore, like when you have this talented of a quarterback, that's when he's on, he's on. Ole Miss is going to be hard to count out in a lot of games, and regardless of how many guys left, they retain him, Perkins, and Kawan Lacey. So they have their
And Will
three of their
Evans.
yeah, they have three of their best players returning. Um, a lot of external buzz is going to be surrounding this team, and it'll be interesting to see how um, Pete Golding and this relatively unproven team is going to be able to handle all of that. I have questions about Pete Golding specifically as a coach, and I think a lot of that is going to be answered this year. They have a tough schedule, um, but high expectations as well. So
Big,
they're a
big,
very another TV team, I would say,
yeah.
Charlie.
Another November squad. What are you in November? They play Georgia at home and then they go to Oklahoma in November. So if you go 0-2 in those, that's likely the coffin for their playoff hopes. But if you can split that, the season's on in terms of playoff. Arch, do you want to go into maybe, I don't know, who do you want, Missouri or Auburn?
I'll talk about Auburn for a second because I just, looking at their two deep roster, it's objectively hilarious. This is literally just USF's roster of last year. Like Nimrod, Singleton, Koger, like their receiving core is just guys that not gonna
Feasted on
they were
Navy last year.
feasted on Navy and but very scheme heavy feasting from. So when you put those against an SEC, defensive back room, I don't think any of these guys can get separation. So going to be interesting. They got an awesome running back. Jeremiah Cobb's fun. But then you got Byron Brown that I love him. I just don't think he's a good quarterback. Like I think he's a
Yeah, that's
great
how I feel.
he's
Yeah.
like oh I like love watching him play. Like his USF tape last year is like if you just want to watch like a fun quarterback, it was awesome. But do I think he's going to be able to like be a sustainable quarterback? No. So it's kind of where I'm at with them.
I'll go Kentucky real quick. I think their quarterback's too good and their coach is too good to be really bad. I think they're gonna get a couple teams. If you have Kenny Minchie and you have like that's a really serviceable quarterback who again just are similar to like the sentiment about how whoever starts between Austin Mack and Keelan Russell like because it went this far like they're both capable like CJ Carr was not named starter for Notre Dame till the end of fall camp. So Kenny Minchie obviously pushed him. I think Kenny Minchie is going to be really good. And Will Stein comes over by way of Auburn. He's had his way in terms of developing quarterbacks. I think those two spots in football are so crucial. And when you're that good in those spots, I think they could. They're over under win totals at 4.5. Like I think they can get to 5, 6. I mean, I'm not predicting them to do anything crazy, but I think they could. Bowl game is in the question, especially if they take like some of the wins that Vandy got last year, and I think Auburn might be a little bit overrated. Like I don't know. I think there's wins out there.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Sam, you want Arkansas or Missouri or Mississippi
I'll go
State?
Missouri. Another team with a lot of buzz coming in to this season. They've had a lot of success with Drink and another team that had benefited from some scheduling in the past few years, yet, has proven themselves to be that consistent 8-ish win SEC team. Um, and again, like they survived, they and the running back survived a really big injury scare with Ahmad Hardy, obviously getting shot. But they have a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball. Austin Simmons was, next in line to be the heir of the Kiffin throne at Ole Miss quarterback, but got kind of screwed over with the whole Chambliss thing. So I think this team could be really good again this year. Their schedule is tough. Not Oh, never mind. Their schedule is very, very tough, and they've got a prove it game pretty early on. They play Kansas in Kansas on a Friday night, big rivalry game. We talked about that in a Big 12 segment. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be cool to see how Austin Simmons does in a full year starting, and high upside for them, I would say, compared to what expectations are for them.
Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
give. Oh, you go. No, you go, Arch.
No, I was gonna say I like Simmons and Lee and whatnot. Hard schedule. Hopefully Hardy's able to play a lot of the season. I know his doubt, like there's some doubts about him playing week one, but I think they'll be a fun team.
I just want to talk about like these are the bottom feeders of the SEC and Arkansas and Mississippi State. But even though these teams like I think their quarterbacks are really frisky good. And um like Kamario Taylor and KJ Jackson, Kamario Taylor at Mississippi State and KJ Jackson at Arkansas are gonna get me in front of a TV. And I guess my prediction, it's not that much of a prediction, but I just think both of those guys are gonna steal a game. I don't know which one, but if you watch these quarterbacks enough, you know they're going to be really good. Like Kamario Taylor, he might be so good that Mississippi State does not have him next year. Same as KJ Jackson. I think Kamario Taylor's probably an echelon better than KJ Jackson, but dude, I think there's going to be a lot to like out of Arkansas. I don't love AJ Hill. I mean, he was okay at Memphis. I don't see that Arkansas battle. I would like to see KJ Jackson play, not AJ Hill in terms of the how about the J the something the letter J run that um Arkansas has been on with KJ Jefferson, KJ Jackson, and AJ Hill. Very rarely do you see that. Okay. Buy, sell, hold. We ready?
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We've done this. This is our fourth or fifth time doing this, but um the rules are you get to buy one team. Buying means you take their over on their win total. You sell that team, which is you take the under on the win total, or you hold a team. A hold means that it's like buying an option in finance. A hold means by week 5 you get to pick on the preseason over under. So the hold should be the ones we get um more points on, right? Because you have like a little bit of you have like a benchmark to see where they're at by week 5. But that's kind of the way this is going. I randomly drew it's me, Arch, Sam as the order. So I'm gonna start by, and I am gonna buy Kentucky.
I wonder who me and Sam are gonna buy. I'm gonna be buying the dogs.
Over 9.5.
You want me to just go right to my hold?
No, it's sell next.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy South Carolina. I'm gonna sell A&M.
A&M is at
Eight
eight
and
and
a
a half.
half.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sell Ole Miss.
I think that's a good. Yeah, I like that. I'm
Patented
selling.
Ole Miss hater here.
I'm selling Auburn. Okay, my hold. I'm gonna hold on to Oklahoma. I think by week 5 we'll have a lot of information. So I'm gonna hold Oklahoma.
I'm gonna hold uh Tennessee.
Florida.
I was looking at them too. All right, guys, that wraps up everything we had to cover today. Excuse my new blue light glasses, the orange light. Try to keep the melatonin try to keep the melatonin processing in my eyes after 8 p.m. So fellas, always a pleasure. We should be getting Duska back on the pod at some point. Reinforcements will be coming, but kids kick setting right now. Everybody else, anything else to get out to the audience?
Next week starts the playoff predictions and whatnot, and conference championship final predictions.
Yeah, we're coming
A lot
up.
to look forward to.
We are 2 weeks away from the Forward Pass, 2.5 weeks away from the Forward Pass year anniversary. So,
No, we're not. We hit that.
Yeah, we did.
no, I thought
It was the 10th.
Oh, really? I thought it was August 25th.
We should have posted something.
Gosh,
That's on me.
we have to post something now. I thought
Whenever we get the first episode, we'll post. Like whenever I know what the first episode it was, I think it was after the 10th.
Wait, hold up. Dude,
I don't know if I'll be able to join next week.
No, the first
Wednesday.
one, dude, the first ever one was August 26th.
What we
No,
posted?
it was not.
Oh, wait,
I have a memory on my phone.
Oh, that was when that's when we put it
I
on
think
Spotify.
recording was different.
Yeah. Well, it's the
Yeah,
YouTube.
first recording was August 10th.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So we got to post something for the year anniversary. It's been a year.
I'll post something and we'll just make a brand new day, like a week. I'll just post something like this is the first time we posted or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But 2 weeks from tomorrow, we got week 0 football because the FCS kicks off week 0 on the Thursday before week 0. Elon plays. So football's very close.
Elon versus
Bluefield State.
Oh, dude, Glenville State. Dude, I watched some film on them last year because I think we played East Stroudsburg. Or no, Lockhaven. We played Lockhaven after they had just played Glenville State. Dude, the Glenville State film was nasty. Like this team, if Elon doesn't win by, I mean, I can't wait to see that spread. Although I've heard some things from the Elon camp that I can't. Whatever. The beat writers have not the ears to the ground of the Elon camp have not been all that impressive. So hopefully we pick it up and hit our form mid-year. We're breaking in a new quarterback. I think you're always going to expect that when you're breaking in a new quarterback. But a couple injuries to the receiver room that we need Bakey to come back as fast as possible. So we're just hoping that finger heals and obviously this is not well reported on, so we're breaking that news now that yeah. Who's the starter for Elon this year? Is it the Stanford kid? Is that
Staub or whatever?
Yeah.
Or Stober or whatever.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to get some more information on that. But yeah, good call, Arch.
Yeah. Well,
all right. Yeah. I'm gonna make my dinner.
Yeah, I gotta get out of here. I gotta start cooking.
See you guys.
See you, bro.
All right, gentlemen. See ya.